Should Christians be pessimists? Should they be optimists? What's your thoughts on that?
You know, as with a team of people working on something needs the optimists and the pessimists.
Absolutely.
Like similarly, you know, the church, we all need each other and the different insights that we bring, and we all tip over into unhelpful kind of versions of ourselves.
No.
But I mean, there is a real sense in which for Christians, it's both. It's got to be both. Francis Spufford, the writer, the English writer, he talks about how Christianity is both more optimistic and more pessimistic than we expect.
Okay.
So we're more pessimistic about human nature than the culture around us, because the Bible is very, you know, what I would call realistic about the human heart, that it's a full-on mess. And therefore, you know, we should be pessimistic about what humans can be and do, and not be surprised. You know, if you start with the position of humans are basically good, which is a very strong kind of strand in our culture, then you're going to be constantly shocked and discouraged, and be tempted to give up.
Denial.
When you kind of can't deny that actually there's so much corruption and there's so much cruelty and there's so much evil in the world, that can't be a surprise to Christians, because the Bible encourages us to be quite pessimistic about human nature. On the other hand, it encourages us to be hugely optimistic about where things are headed, and about what human nature can be with God's help and with his transforming presence. So, you know, a big part of whether you think you can act in the world and whether there's any point in doing so, is going to be like, what kind of universe do you think we live in? Do we live in a random one where, you know, things might go well or they might go badly, and there's no particular reason why it should be one or the other? Like things like justice and order are things that we impose as humans, as this, you know, fluke evolved creature. We impose those on a reality that doesn't know anything about them. Whereas if you think that justice and peace and beauty and joy are built into the fabric of the universe because the God who created the universe is and creates those things, then that's going to make a huge difference to your sense of, is it worth fighting injustice? Is it worth trying to bring about good in the face of great failure to do so? You know, when things aren't working out, when, you know, the adversity is just kind of looks insurmountable. If you believe in a God who's beyond that and anchoring that and saying, well, ultimately, whether you fail or succeed at this particular moment, at this particular thing, ultimately the arc of the universe bends towards justice, then, you know, you can work at something and be like, okay, the world is not ours to save. There's kind of a book called that, which I haven't read, but it's a great title.
Okay. Yep.
The world is not ours to save, but I'm called to act and to do what I can with what I've been given to make things better, not worse. In the place that I find myself. And I can do that and trust that, you know, it's not all on me. So I think it's both, right? Christians are going to be more optimistic and less optimistic than their neighbors, or we should be.
Yes. And I think, and do you think that's largely attached to hope? Would you say optimism and hope go kind of hand in hand in that sense?
Yes. I mean, I don't want to, because it depends on whether optimism, if you're an optimist, you're like, oh, it's just hope. And if you're a pessimist, you're like, optimists are deluded.
That's true.
And what they're doing is just kind of
hope.
counting things that should be properly seen and lamented and so on. And hope is not that. Hope is not kind of la, 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 like ignoring, you know, what's terrible, refusing to look at it. Hope has room for lament and room for things going radically wrong in the short and long term. But it also, you know, sorry.
So I was going to say, you talk about lamentations in the book as well, right? You quote, Ecclesiastes, is it?
Yeah. Ecclesiastes.
Yeah, Ecclesiastes, which is exactly what we're talking about. You know, there's hope, but we're still assessing the reality of what needs to change or what will happen, right?
Yeah. It's an extremely, in many ways, pessimistic book, Ecclesiastes, this book of wisdom that, you know, It's probably the most surprising book to find in the Bible. That is this person being like, meaningless, meaningless, everything is meaningless. You know, what's the point in doing anything? Everything ends up the same. You know, if you're good or bad, you still die. Like, you know, these things that you're like, is this something you're allowed to say in the Bible?
Yeah.
Whereas it's profoundly tapping into something that we experience. I've spoken to teachers about these passages where I feel like teachers particularly, you know, you come back for another term and it's like, there's nothing new under the sun. You know, we do this and we do that and everything ends up the same, and you've got to gear up to do the same things over and over. And I mean, we all feel this in work of whatever form, you know, at some point. And, you know, the Bible's realistic about that. It honors that. It kind of goes, yeah, you can feel like nothing ever changes, and what's the point? And to look at that, to build that into the sense of this is what human experience is, but it's not the whole story. I think hope does that. It's
Yeah.
realistic about